Going on, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic day. You see the title of the video, man. Something I really, just want to get off my chest, talk about it a little bit. I got a comment from one guy, he's like, hey, man, super relatable, subscribed. Thank you, brother. But when he said that, being relatable, I'm like, man, you know what? Like, this stuff's really important. And there's other messages that I want to get out. And that topic was talking about how weed and how bad weed is for you. And I kind of hinted in the video that I initially started with alcohol, but I really didn't elaborate on it. So that's what I'm going to do in this video, because alcohol is like even worse. To it, like in most cases, alcohol is worse. My personal opinion, tell me I'm wrong if you want, but alcohol is almost worse than any of the other drugs. And that's going to sound crazy, when you first hear it, but let me explain why I think that. So, like, the other drugs, like crack, meth, whatever it may be, those drugs are very bad for you, yes, and they will fuck you up, and you can OD, and you can die. But the thing about those drugs is usually people that get really hooked on that stuff, like, they destroy their family sometimes, yeah, but they end up, like, homeless. They end up usually, like, alone, and just homeless, and, and they never. I guess what I'm trying to get at, with alcohol, the problem with alcohol is you can be an alcoholic, you can have a very severe alcohol problem and still live a normal life and have a family and have a job. But when you have an alcoholic, your whole life is ass and you're ruining everything, but you can keep it going. Majority of alcoholics, man, they got normal lives. They got normal lives, but they cope at work. But then they're pieces of shit outside of work. They're pieces of shit at home. They abuse their families. They abuse their kids, abuse their wife, take advantage, take advantage of other people. But and those problems, they just keep going. They keep repeating themselves. Why? Because they can somewhat still live a normal life. To me, people on meth and crack, usually, it's just on a downward trajectory until eventually the unfortunate happens. They can't maintain a normal life, most of them, like alcoholics can. That's why, to me, I think alcohol is one of the worst drugs in the world. And the fact that it's still legal, still to this day, blows me away. And, and I had a very bad problem with it. And I'm just going to tell you, kind of like my side and a couple of stories that I have. So hopefully it will make you not do it if you haven't done it yet. And if you are doing it, hope you'll give it up. 3, if you have given it up, I hope me being able to relate with you will keep you from going back to it. So I started drinking at a very young age, dude. I started drinking, I think I was like 14 years old. And one of my cousins let me do it. And it was a horrible, horrible experience. But now, that I think back on it, I was the alcoholic. I was that guy. Like, I was never violent. I was never mean. No, never angry. I never went on angry tantrums. I was never destroying shit. I never did anything, really stupid. I didn't go out driving. That's a lie. I did it a couple times. Very ashamed of myself. By the way, don't do that. It's not like I was driving very far and it was late, but just don't do that. Okay, seriously, don't do that. You could kill somebody, and that's one of the most shameful moments of my life. Okay, but you can't do that. But I was that guy that my goal was to get blackout drunk every single time, regardless. And I think that is because that is what I learned. Because when I was 14, what happened is my cousin had like this flavored Smirnoff. And I was like, can I try it? He said, yeah. I'm like, cool. So I was drinking it, and I was like, damn, this shit kind of good. And he was like, well, it's a wine cooler anyway. So just drink a little bit more of it. You'll be all right. It's not like it's a lot. So I was chugging that shit, right? Slamming it back. Turns out it was not the wine cooler. It was fucking vodka. It was Smirnoff flavored vodka. And by the time he noticed it, I had way too much. As a 14-year-old, somebody who's never had alcohol before, you can see how this went. Did it go well? No, not at all. As a matter of fact, it went south very quickly. I got blackout drunk. And since that was my first time experiencing alcohol, that's pretty much just what I associated getting drunk with. So moving forward for the rest of my life, ever since that time, I was getting drunk at least once a month since I was 14 years old. But as I got older, obviously, it got worse and the frequency started to go up. But when I got drunk, my goal was to get blackout drunk every single time. If I didn't get blackout drunk, it didn't count. And I didn't have fun. Very bad. Don't ever do that. Don't get blackout drunk. Once I got sober and I stopped drinking, I found out what blacking out like actually is. Like it's literally the hippocampus, the part of your brain that's responsible for memories just literally just gets shut down. It stops working. And that's why people that are blackout drunk can continue to operate but never remember it. And it's damaging your brain every single time. And some of the problems that I have now, my massive focus issues, all the other problems that I struggle with probably attributes back to alcohol abuse in my developmental years. And unfortunately, my parents were alcoholics too. So it's not like they thought anything was wrong. They knew I was doing it, but they didn't do anything about it because they were struggling with it too. But I got blackout drunk. Anytime I got drunk, I got blackout drunk. And for me, and this is how pathetic I was. This is how stupid I was. Don't be me. But when I partied, okay, I wanted to forget everything. I wanted to get blackout drunk. And when I woke up, my favorite part, bro, was people telling me what I did that I didn't remember. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. And I hate my past self for that. I hate that I did that to myself. I hate that I did that to myself. It sounds funny. It's all fun and games until you get older and you realize, like, man, I really fucked my life up when I was younger. And I was a heavy drinker until I was about 25 years old. And it was a every weekend thing from like 16, 17 till I was like 21, right? When I became old enough to buy my own alcohol, it got 10 times worse. Because it started going from about maybe mostly 2 nights a week. It started going to every other day. That was how I convinced myself that I wasn't an alcoholic. I would take a day break between, times getting blackout drunk. And it got to the point to where, like I bought a gaming PC. So I was always hiding in my room, because the real reason I was drinking is I was hiding all my problems, it's just like weed, alcohol kind of convinces you that you don't have any problems or, your problems aren't that bad. And then when you're sober again and they come back, now you got to deal with it and you've associated your brain and your habits with drinking to deal with it instead of actually thinking through it. It started becoming an every other day thing, and that's how I convinced myself that I wasn't an alcoholic. And you best believe every single time I drank, I got blackout drunk. So it became this like 3 or 4 year long time period of me playing Call of Duty on my computer. I would buy a bottle of vodka and then a 2 liter of Sprite, and then I would go through that whole bottle in one gaming session. All right, and then I'd buy a shit ton of food because I would have a cheat day sometimes, and I would just be by myself in my game room, dude, just playing video games all night, drinking myself into being blackout drunk, waking up with the worst hangover of my life, and continuing on with my life like it's just a normal thing. And to me, it was normal for a while, but luckily, funny enough, like March of 2020, when they really started closing everything down, I decided I wanted to get sober, man. I don't know, just one day, man, I woke up and I was like, man, this shit sucks. I'm sick of it. Like I get nothing out of it anymore. I don't see a positive in this. I'm over it. And luckily I caught it before I became an everyday person. And I never did it during the day. I always did it at the end of the night. I was a closet alcoholic. I didn't want anybody to know that I had a problem. So I would suffer through the day, and I'd be like, I hate my life. I hate living. But at the very least, I can hate my life and hate living for like 10 hours until I get home and I can drink and go to sleep. So about March 2020 comes around, like just one day I was like, man, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of it. So I stopped for about like a couple weeks. And that shit sucked because COVID happened. And I could only sit at home. And there was a liquor store that was a 2-minute walk away from me. There was a Kroger that was behind me that had its liquor store there, and I could just walk over there. It was the hardest thing in the world, but I did it. But then about get to April, like mid-April, I think, sometime in April, my buddy came over. He's like, hey, he was the one I drank with all the time, which unfortunately he's not in my life anymore. I had to get him out just because he still to this day is drinking. And well, he's like, hey man, you want to get fucked up? And I'm like, yeah, it's been like 3-4 weeks. Why not? So we get together, and I get absolutely obliterated, horribly drunk. We went through like 2.5 bottles. We would always get the big bottle of Jaeger, and then we'd run out of it, and we'd be already drunk and stupid. And we'd go over to Kroger, grab another bottle, and come home. Usually not Jaeger, it'd be something else, right? So we did that, and I swear to you, I must have been throwing up for like 2 days straight after that. And ever since, I haven't touched a drop of alcohol since. That was when I switched to weed. But we already talked about that. But when I quit that alcohol for that 3 weeks, I couldn't sleep. I was sweating all the time. I was very angry. I didn't know what to do with myself because I was like, man, I just, and all of the activities I did while I was drunk, I couldn't do them anymore because when I wanted to do them, I wanted to drink at the same time. That's when I found out I'm not much of a gamer anymore. Like, I still do, like, every now and then I'll play video games sometimes, but not nearly as much as I did when I drank because I started to realize that I also was gaming to get away from everything, that's going on in my life. I still enjoy video games, but not nearly as much as I used to. So I couldn't play video games. I couldn't watch TV or movies. I really don't even watch TV or movies anymore. All these activities that I did, that when I did them, I had to drink. And when I stopped drinking, I stopped having cheat days at the same time because I would do both. I would have my cheat days and I would eat pizza and cereal and ice cream and everything else in one day. Basically, I'm very, thankful that, I work out as much as I do and I'm still as healthy as I am. But I did used to abuse my body, and I'm just thankful, that I had it in me to still go to the gym, still do cardio, take care of my heart health and everything. And I was able to make it through it. So a lot of people, they don't have that. They don't go to the gym, they don't exercise, they don't do nothing. So that alcohol is really destroying their body. But thankfully, I at least had that to get away from. That was the only thing that I didn't stop doing. Alcohol is very destructive, man. I hate it, and I could talk about it for like hours, man, because I've had a lot of time to think on it. I watched my mom, because my mom, I love my mom. She's the best woman in the world. She's sober now too, but I seen her. She was an everyday alcoholic. She needed it the second she woke up. And when I watched her quit, because I still live with her, dude, and she almost died. She laid in her bed for like a week and a half. Like almost had to go to the hospital because she felt so bad. Now, why is something like that allowed to be legal? And like weed took forever. No, weed's not good either, but weed doesn't cause all of that or all these problems. It's the worst, man. And I wish just alcohol would go away. I wish it wasn't advertised so much. I wish it wasn't pushed out to everybody. Thankfully, I'm starting to notice a trend that since weed has become a legal thing, I've started to see a lot less people are drinking, a lot less people are smoking weed. But at the very least, they're not drinking as much because alcohol is more destructive. But alcohol is a frontward, like a very forward type of destruction. It's destructive. Weed makes you think you're fine. Weed looks like everything okay, but it's really not. It's doing the same thing. It's just not as like unhealthy for you, like physically, and it doesn't cause you to do really stupid shit like alcohol does. But that's all I got for today, guys. Moral of the story: don't be like me. Don't make the mistakes that I made. And if you currently are making the mistakes that I made, I really hope that you can gather the strength and the purpose to not do it. And if you need someone to talk to, leave a comment, bro, and just like I'll reply to you. I want everybody to get rid of their vices, regardless of what it is, because I'm like 100% sober now. And I'm gonna have a video about how great being sober is. But man, and I want everybody to feel this because I lived my life for so long in the darkness. Like this is a whole new light to me. Being sober and stuff. And now I'm addicted to being sober. I still have people offer me weed all the time when I'm around. I'm like, nah, I can watch all five of you smoke and I'm fine, man. Because you know what? Being sober is a high of it. It's a high in itself. It really is, man. You just got to get through the couple weeks of struggle that it is, because your brain's used to being a certain way. But I'm telling you, being sober is the best thing you can do to yourself, man. But I'm gonna talk to you guys later. Peace.